Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Let me just start by saying that nothing is going to spoil my presentation this afternoon. Permission to speak from a seat other than my own. Permission to speak
My apologies.
from a seat other than my own.
Permission granted, Minister.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. As I said before, I won't allow anybody or anything to spoil my presentation of substance this afternoon. Madam Speaker, first of all, before I start, let me just say how saddened I am on learning of the passing of my colleague, Member of Parliament, Minister and Deputy Treasurer of the Jamaica Labour Party, Mr. Leslie Campbell. On behalf of my family and myself, I wish to pay condolences to his family, entire family. I'm sure that he will be dealt with according to House rules. I rise today in this honourable House with gratitude and a deep sense of responsibility as we chart the path forward for the critical sectors under my portfolio: energy, transport, and telecommunications. These technical teams and administrative staff for your continued service to nation. I also acknowledge former Permanent Secretary Mrs. Carol Palmer, who I worked with from 2020, and thank her for her steadfast leadership prior to her retirement in December 2025. Madam Speaker, I remain deeply appreciative of our board members and advisors whose insight and guidance continue to shape the policies and achievements of the ministry that I will outline today. To my CPOs, I thank you always for your steadfast support, which allows me to effectively balance my ministerial duties and my role as Member of Parliament. I'm grateful not only to you but to your families for the sacrifices that you make. To the staff across all agencies, departments under this ministry, you are the driving force behind implementation and success of all that we have accomplished in the last financial year. Whether in offices, telecommunication networks, or transport hubs, your contributions are vital and deeply valued. To the people of West Portland, who have entrusted me with the privilege of representation over the last many years, I remain committed to your development and well-being. Your voices continue to guide my work, and I thank you for your confidence. Many of them are here and have been here every year since 2007. So I can, Madam Speaker, say that I am definitely a senior, as I first came here in 2007, returned in 2008 after a by-election, 11, 2016, 2020, 2025. I would expect at least an acknowledgement. When I look across, just right in front of me, not too far, in this very, I see people who have gone all around Jamaica and have jumped from seat to seat and gone from east to west. Thank goodness that's not me. As I proceed today with today's sectoral presentation, let us remain focused on the task ahead, advancing policies and initiatives that will strengthen our economy, improve our service delivery, and transform lives, particularly in these turbulent and uncertain times. Resilience in action. Extreme times require extreme actions and extreme responses. With the leadership of the Most Honourable Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness, I am more than confident that Jamaica will continue to prosper despite the setbacks of COVID, Beryl, and Melissa. Madam Speaker, the true measure of leadership is not how we govern in moments of calm, but how we act amid uncertainty and competing demands of crisis. As Minister of Energy, Transport and Telecommunications, I remain committed to a model of leadership that requires careful balance between the welfare of our people, the rigors of good governance, and the realities of political stability in making decisive actions, even in the face of criticism. Extreme times require extreme actions and responses. Throughout the fiscal year, the key sectors under my portfolio, energy, transport, and telecommunications, have continued to advance despite the global and domestic uncertainties. Indeed, these gains have not been achieved in the absence of uncertainty, but with hard work by the civil servants within my ministry. I will begin with the energy sector, which continues to be profoundly impacted by the current geopolitical climate. And I will also respond to my colleague, Member of Parliament, Opposition spokesperson. Madam Speaker, as I rise to outline the achievements of the ministry and its agencies, take the opportunity to update the Honourable House and the country on the energy portfolio for financial year 25-26. It is important to situate Jamaica's progress within the context of a rapidly evolving and increasingly uncertain global energy landscape. Jamaica continues to experience sustained increases in fuel prices, driven by upward movements in the U.S. Gulf Coast benchmark, the primary reference for refined petroleum products across the region. Madam Speaker, even as we respond to these immediate pressures, we must remain focused on the long-term solution. A global energy transition is underway. It underscores the urgency for countries like Jamaica to strengthen energy security, diversify energy sources, and accelerate the shift towards sustainable, affordable, and reliable energy for all. Madam Speaker, Jamaica continues to advance its oil and gas exploration program by United Oil and Gas as part of a broader strategy to strengthen energy security and diversify our energy mix. While the contract was signed in 2014 under the previous administration, it is important to note that detailed execution, stakeholder alignment, and ultimate progress has occurred from 2016 to present. Multiple surveys and new findings. Challenges presented by COVID and a downturn in global oil and gas exploration caused severe delays to the project. But I can ultimately say the most recent preliminary findings are positive. United Oil and Gas continues its search for partners in the license to move to the next phase of the operation, which will be drilling a well. Madam Speaker, just in layman's term, if you allow me, it is usually between 10 and 30% probability for successfully finding oil or gas. You start out at 10% probability, 90%. You move from 10 to 30. 30 pretty much is the highest that you would go in relation to saying that you have the best probability of finding gas and oil. I'm happy to say that we started at 10% in 2016, and with the recent surveys, we would have reached 30%, which would mean that we will have interested parties to partner with United Oil and Gas, hopefully in due course. So I remain hopeful and cautiously optimistic. Let me put it no further than that. So further to developments in April this year, the latest updates from the ongoing exploration activities continue to support a cautiously optimistic outlook, while underscoring the need for careful, evidence-based progression at each phase of the process. The government remains measured in its approach, recognizing that any discovery would require significant investment, probably 60 to 80 million US to drill one well, and we would have 14 rigorous environmental safeguards and a clear regulatory framework to guide development. Importantly, this initiative is being pursued in a balanced manner, ensuring that exploration efforts align with Jamaica's national commitment to environmental protection. Madam Speaker, the generation procurement entity has launched the largest renewable tender ever undertaken in the Caribbean, initially comprising of 220 megawatts of renewables, paired with 110 megawatts of battery storage. Madam Speaker, building on a strong market interest and the Government of Jamaica's commitment to accelerating the energy transition, this has now increased this number to 300 megawatts of renewable energy and 150 megawatts of battery storage, with a tender scheduled for August 2026. This builds on the 100 megawatts of solar capacity awarded in 2024, bringing total renewable additions to 400 megawatts. Taken together, these investments represent a decisive step toward enhancing energy security, reducing exposure to global oil price volatility, and advancing Jamaica's transition to a more resilient, sustainable, and diversified energy mix. In parallel, the government is advancing an additional 100 megawatts of distributed renewable energy through a strengthened net billing program, empowering households and businesses to generate their own electricity. The net billing program terms of reference has been completed and is being modernized through the introduction of a fully online application platform expected to be operational later this year. This platform will support the acceleration of net billing. Additionally, discussions have started with the Jamaica Public Service to increase the net billing threshold and to incorporate battery storage into the program. The ministry is also reviewing license fees and system capacity limits of 10 kilowatts for residential and 100 megawatts for commercial systems with mandated battery storage, including the integration of battery storage to better support modern energy needs such as electric vehicle charging. Jamaica currently generates about 15% of its electricity from renewable sources. Ongoing and planned projects are expected to add roughly 35 percentage points, helping the country reach its 50% renewable energy targets by 2030, not only in Jamaica, but also the Caribbean. Now, Madam Speaker, let me just remind you that it was originally 30% by 2030, and the Prime Minister in a meeting gave a directive that we must move it from 30 to 50, which is a very ambitious target, but of course he has the right minister to get it done. Madam Speaker, structural reforms are advancing in parallel. The power wheeling regulations have been completed and gazetted, with final discussions underway to settle the tariffs and billing arrangements, so implementation can begin shortly. This will allow more participants to access trade electricity across the grid. At the same time, the updated national energy policy, along with the supporting action plan and sub-policy, is being finalized for submission to Cabinet. I'm happy to say that I signed that submission today before coming to Parliament. This policy sets a clear pathway towards a modern energy system that is secure, reliable, affordable, and sustainable. It addresses key national priorities, including expanding access to the remaining 5% of Jamaicans without electricity, improving system efficiency, maintaining affordability, and strengthening resilience to natural disasters. In practical terms, Madam Speaker, this is about building an energy system that works for the Jamaican people, one that reduces cost over time, supports economic growth, and protects us from external shocks. Madam Speaker, on restoration, the response to Hurricane Melissa stands as a strong example of national resilience. With the support of 18 Carolec partners, Jamaica restored electricity to 98% of its customers within 3.5 months, improving to 99.6 as of April 20th, 2026. Full restoration is on track for April, except in cases where customers cannot yet safely receive power. Madam Speaker, this program did not happen by chance. The $150 million loan approved in December was critical in accelerating recovery and avoiding a scenario where restoration could have stretched into late 2026 or even early 2027. Madam Speaker, there has been a lot of flip-flops surrounding the speed and accountability. I went back to the Hansard to remind this Honourable House of what the leader of the opposition said in November 2025 in regards to the JPS loan. Here is what he said from Hansard. I would like your assurance, Minister, that the 200 million will be coughed up by JPS, perhaps by its two large overseas shareholders, Maribor and East West Power, Korean government, South Korean government, own large utility, or JPS is going to draw down on whatever funding it can raise from its creditors. I don't know how they plan to fund it, but we need to know it's funded before we put in our $150 million in. Madam Speaker, he went on to state that it's a risk we are not prepared to take as a country. Thankfully, Madam Speaker, the results of September 3rd installed a government that knows how to dance in the rain. A government capable of assessing risk and responsibility. Those are his words, Madam Speaker. The other member of the opposition, including the member from St. Catherine Southeastern, in a statement filled with more flaws than ours, said we should measure opportunity cost of fast-tracking the restoration by providing a loan to the JPS.
Minister, hold a moment, please. Leader of the opposition, quick question. Are you standing on a point of order?